Amber from Goddess to Goodness. I'm actually jumping. I've been pulled to do a reading for like the last few days. The energy has kind of been hard to unpack or hard to like figure out. And so I've been pulled to do a message anyways, but then I came across, I tried to not pay attention to the news, but especially like celebrity stuff and like whatever. But I noticed there's been a few like kind of explosive things, I guess, coming up with actors such as like Will Smith and the Jada Pinkett Smith thing, and now Johnny Depp and the like, you know, his ex-wife. And so I've stayed away from the Will Smith thing, but I was pulled to the Johnny Depp thing. You know, I've been watching like clips of like testimony and deposition and things like that. And, you know, I gotta say, having been through an abusive romantic relationship with my ex-husband and having been with, you know, having maintained, you know, what can be in hindsight looked at as abusive friendships over the years, I'm recognizing like a pattern, and I'm pulled into the one with Johnny Depp because I just get a feeling about him that he's just extremely like empathetic. And you know, I can always be wrong. But as I'm like, and I go in with an open mind because you just never know, you know what I mean? You never know what goes on behind the scenes with somebody. And so in listening to some of the testimony and then like some of like the recorded conversations between, you know, Depp and his wife or ex-wife, there are some really huge red flags that show up like from her side. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because sometimes when we are comfortable in like chaotic, violent, or abusive situations, whether the abuse is the standard definition of abuse, which I gotta tell you, a lot of abuse is insidious and it's hidden. And even the people who are experiencing the abuse at the time might not exactly say, oh, this is abusive. Okay. And that's mostly because abusers and now look, everybody can have tendencies and it is a spectrum. Okay. So by no means am I like diagnosing anybody here or anything like that. I'm being called to kind of bring this to the forefront so that we can learn to make better choices and make better decisions in regards to other people and situations, but also to, you know, check ourselves for sure. Because it's one thing that I did learn by experience is that an unhealed empath or like an unhealed empathic person can, over time of being in a situation like that, they can over time begin to display narcissistic tactics themselves as a means of coping with said abuse. Okay. And again, there are abusers who have no idea that they are abusing the person they're with. But what does abuse look like? Well, it looks like control. It can look like things that are extremely like needy, like don't leave me. If you leave me, I do this, or that kind of thing. One thing I did pick up on, and really, wow, it like struck me as hitting home for some of the past relationships that I spoke about, whether it was with my ex-husband or with their, you know, I've had a few friends who've displayed behavior like this. But there can be like, well, in his case, he was being emasculated and insulted, but it can be the other way around. And this just goes to show you that abusive behavior doesn't necessarily just stem from men towards women, or, you know, or, and it doesn't matter how you gender identify, but it doesn't necessarily stem masculine to feminine. This shows that it can literally come from a feminine person, a female person, or a feminine perspective or feminine energy. And so it's like this kind of situation doesn't hold any bias, or it doesn't hold any, oh, well, it's only this way. You know, it's not a this or a that conversation, okay? Sometimes we can allow these things to keep taking place because they start out small and start out as things that might like catch our attention, or like maybe just don't sit right with us for a minute, but you know, we give it the benefit of the doubt. And then the next time it can be a little weirder or but it happens on such a slow progression. And the reason I want to bring this to the attention is because a lot of times if people have not experienced this themselves, they often say to the person who was a victim of the abuse, well, why didn't you just leave? Or why didn't you just end it with that person? Or why didn't you just... And no person ever is like, well, I planned on being in an abusive relationship, or I planned on like letting that happen, or I planned on consenting to it. The reason it happens is because, again, it's slow, it comes in increments, and it just like slightly gets weirder and weirder as the person experiencing it, your tolerance kind of becomes higher and higher for it, right? Because the more engaged you become with the other person, the more, you know, like emotions and feelings are there, and, you know, well, maybe, you know, but they love me, and, you know, they had a bad day, and we sometimes excuse these behaviors, and unhealthy as they might be, you know, we try to maybe like help the person, or maybe try to like be there for that person. And in this case of depth versus heard, this struck me because there was a lot of just, her language says it all, okay? And so I'm going to, and also I feel like this conversation here is, and you can let me know in the comments, but I feel like this conversation is very important, especially when we're talking about like soulmates, twin flames, you know, divine counterparts and the like. And if you're not meeting each other in a space where both people are respected, both needs are acknowledged and incorporated on an equal forum, okay, it doesn't, you know, that is the time to pull away and like love from afar, if that is the case, okay? And it's not saying that good people, there are good people who have tendencies like this because it's maybe the way they grew up and they learn to associate certain things. So now let me get to that here. The one thing that really stuck out for me in this Amber Heard thing is, okay, she says, I just want to connect with you, but I feel like you're going to leave all the time, and I just want to connect with you. Sorry, I have notes. And I just want to connect with you. And so then when we fight and you leave, and then, you know, the rest of what she says, but then she says it again. Well, I just want to connect with you, and you walk away when we're fighting. And he keeps repeating, well, if there's physical altercations or when it gets physical, I am going to leave, because in no way, shape, or form do I want to engage in a physical, you know, in a physical altercation with you. So I am going to leave and go take an hour and get space. But what was interesting is her language said, I just want to connect. I just want to connect with you. And she says, you don't fight for me when we're fighting. And he goes, well, what do you mean by that? And she just keeps saying, but you won't fight for me. You won't fight for me. Now, let me just state here, there's a difference between fighting for somebody and fighting with somebody. And there seems to be this moment where she can't, it seems like she does it. She completely 100% makes connection and fighting interchangeable, okay? And so the reason this is important is because depending on what our circumstances were growing up or whatever it is, sometimes we do find comfort in situations that aren't for our highest good. And if you grew up in a household where everybody was like, oh yeah, we love each other so much, but all they did was fight, argue, and in her case, throw things and elicit reactions when they're not getting the reaction that they prefer. And if you listen to the conversation, you can look it up on YouTube, but if you listen to their conversation, it's very, very telling, because he says to her, and he gives her space to speak, which honestly, I listened to it and I wanted to run away, but I figured it was a learning experience, so I made myself listen to the whole thing. But her amount of like fearful, she has this fearful energy and very insecure nature about her, and he keeps saying, well, I do respect you and I do care how you feel, but if you're going to start throwing things and doing things like that, I don't want to be around it. And she says, well, I can't guarantee how I'm going to react, and kind of brushes it off, like to minimize it, like, well, what I do, like, that's not a big deal. And he keeps reiterating, like, but it is a big deal. And when you're, when it gets physical and you're insulting me and you're saying this, she goes, but then I just get worried that you're going to leave. And so I find this very interesting, because in some of my experiences, this has been the experience that I've had with like several friends. Like, they are so afraid that you are going to unfriend them, but then they begin to do things that are controlling. Oh, you can't hang out with somebody else, or telling people behind your back, oh, they hate you, and I'm the only one who is their true friend. I've had that actually happen at a workplace in real life. Or overly concerned about like your personal business, or overly concerned about like who you're dating, or just you could just be dating somebody and they begin to display these tactics. Another thing that came up in their conversation was in regards to, we have to go to bed together at the same time. And this took me right back to my ex-husband, because he had a major issue if I wasn't sleepy and I wanted to stay up and like watch TV for a little bit, you know what I mean? And so this comes up, it was just very interesting to me because it came up in their dynamic as well. And I just thought, wow, like at the time I thought maybe I was being a little unreasonable, or maybe I could have compromised more. But when it infringes on your sovereignty and your autonomy, right? And that can be like talking to who you want to talk to, maintaining friendships with other people, where if you notice that your person or the person you're dealing with, whether it's a friend or, a relationship, if you notice that they say, yeah, well, I get what you're feeling, but this is how I feel, but this is what it does to me. This is what you make me do, and kind of like minimizes your needs and your wants and your respect. And I'm going to bring up one other thing here. Johnny Depp says, well, we just need to respect each other and learn to listen to each other. And she says, yeah, I know, you're right. I mean, that won't always happen, that phrase right there, yeah, you're right, I know, but that won't always happen, meaning she can't make the promise to respect the other person, the other in the situation. He also says, we can't ever have any more physical violence here. If there's physical violence, I'm going to leave. And she says, well, I can't promise that, but I can change. That literally, hold on one second. Sorry, I had a phone call. That literally blew my mind. He said, we absolutely cannot have any physical altercations. I can't do that. I'm going to leave as soon as you start throwing things or escalate it to that level. And she says, well, yeah, I know. Well, I can't promise that, and I can't promise how I'm going to react, but I can change. You can help me change. There's another red flag. You can help me change. It's nobody's responsibility to fix another, to fix their wounds, to fix their to fix their behaviors or their insecurities. That's nobody else's responsibility but your own. And I was proud of him because he says, well, I'll help you, but you have to be helping yourself first. And then I will do my best to help you the best I can. Let's see here. Hold on. I have a couple of notes. One other thing in terms of minimizing her throwing of things and hitting and punching and slapping and kicking, she says, well, that's irrelevant. You do this. And every time he brings it up, yeah, but when you smack me and hit me or throw things, yeah, I know I do that, but you did this. And that deflection thing, my ex was famous for that. The deflection was just extremely telling. Like I said, I didn't even have to see her face or anything. It was just the language used on her side. And then one other thing I'm going to just bring up here is he says they are talking about something of which I know nothing about. But the phrase he says is, well, you lied. You lied in regards to blah, 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 whatever it was. And she says, well, which lie? My jaw, dropped. And he says, well, you lied about X, Y, and Z. And she said, well, you're still not specifying which lie. That is a red flag, folks. Which lie implies, well, how many lies are there? Okay. It just was very, very telling. And again, it wasn't just the words or the phrases. It was the construction of it, the way it was utilized, and the way his own responses were utilized almost against him in the conversation. So I find that interesting. And remember, if you are experiencing anything like this, you can have love for that person, but it is not your responsibility or your duty to be healing anybody else. Remember, it's a slippery slope. If something doesn't sit right, trust your intuition and, maybe create some distance. And again, I'm not saying they're terrible people. I'm just saying that if somebody is engaging or trying to have you engage in unhealthy behaviors like that, especially if you are, feeling connected to like a twin flame or soulmate or divine counterpart journey, remember that these are things that do not get better with time. Okay. And so I love you all so much. If this video was valuable and resonated to you or with you, please, I ask that you please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and please share it with somebody that may find value in this. All right, guys, thank you so much. I hope you have a beautiful day. Bye.